Good morning and welcome back to Reading Wikis for You, where we read the wiki articles for you. And today we're going to continue our look at the Battletech fictional universe by looking at the fourth of the original invading clans, Clan Smoke Jaguar. Now, as always, drop a comment down below while I'm reading. Let me know what articles you'd like to see next. All right, let's get started. Clan Smoke Jaguar was one of the original 20 clans founded by Nicholas Kerensky. Members of Clan Smoke Jaguar took fierce pride in their namesake, a predator descended from genetically altered Terran jaguars imported to Strana Mechty. The Smoke Jaguars imitated their namesake almost to a fault, believing that the clan's revered founder modeled all of clan society on their totem animal, basing this assertion on an oft-quoted journal entry of Kerensky's, which they revered second only to the remembrance. From their inception, the Smoke Jaguars gained a deserved reputation for uncompromising ferocity towards their enemies, notably during Operation Klondike and later in crushing the Londerholm Revolt. An early and fervent supporter of the Crusader philosophy, the Smoke Jaguars were one of the 4 original clans to take part in Operation Revival, the clan's attempted conquest of the Inner Sphere. Defeated during the pivotal Battle of Tukiad, the Jaguars were eventually destroyed by the reborn Star League during Operation Bulldog and Operation Serpent. The clan was also responsible for the creation of protomechs, which quickly spread amongst the other clans during the Wars of Possession. Survivors of the Smoke Jaguars would gather on Wayside 5 and reform themselves into the Fidelis under the leadership of Custos Paul Moon. They would fight during the Jihad and the Dark Age on behalf of Devlin Stone, and the Republic of the Sphere until relations soured in 3149, causing them to break with the Republic and join the Wolf Empire. After the defeat of the Republic and Clan Jade Falcon and the reestablishment of the Star League in 3151, members of the Fidelis were permitted to resurrect Clan Smoke Jaguar as a non-voting clan bound to the Ilkhan. History. Founding. Franklin Osis, the first Khan of the Smoke Jaguar clan, was born in the Federated Sons to parents who served in the SLDF 238th Armored Division. They followed Alexander Kerensky in his exodus from the Inner Sphere, and over the years instilled in young Franklin the same blind trust in General Kerensky as they had. When the Exodus fleet reached the Pentagon worlds, the Osis family settled on Eden and turned to a life of farming. But before long, ancient prejudices and hatreds began to resurface and caused dissension among the colonists. Franklin's brother Simon joined a pro-Sons gang, and eventually Franklin himself was forced to join for protection, though he always tried to avoid confrontations or end them bloodlessly. However, in 2800, he was arrested and forced to perform hard labor on Circe. When he returned to Eden, he was all but broken in spirit, and the first battles of the Exodus Civil War had begun. The final straw for him came when General Kerensky ordered his troops to summarily execute all rebels in a final attempt to put down the revolt. Franklin lost all faith in his former idol and became convinced humanity could never escape the taint of war without rebuilding society from the ground up. When Nicholas Kerensky called for a second exodus, Franklin jumped at the chance, bringing with him his parents and brother. When they reached Strana Mechty, Franklin found a measure of peace wandering the planet's lush jungles, taking an interest in the wildlife and particularly the Smoke Jaguar, as a means to heal the mental wounds he had suffered. Unfortunately, in the spring of 2809, while Franklin and Simon were observing a pack of Smoke Jaguars, one of them leaped down from a tree branch and knocked Simon to the ground. Franklin was frozen in terror and could do nothing as the animal savaged his brother. Finally, his brother's dying screams cut short as the animal tore out his throat. A berserk fury overcame Franklin. He leaped onto the beast, armed only with a small hunting knife, and slew it in a brief, frenzied butchery. As the Smoke Jaguar lay dead at his feet, for the first time in his life, Franklin took pleasure in the violence, seemingly wiping away the stain of cowardice which had cost Simon his life. At Nicholas Kerensky's urging, Franklin went on to train as a mech warrior, taking every opportunity to face danger and conquer it through combat. Soon he began to outmatch his trainers in both the ferocity and tenacity of his attacks, which, while impressive, also worried Nicholas with the thought that he might become nothing more than a mindless killing machine. Thus, Nicholas designated Franklin for officer training, hoping to temper his rage so that it may be controlled during battle. Within 2 years, Franklin won command of a trinary in the newly formed Clan Smoke Jaguar. The ferocity and skill with which Franklin Osis displayed eventually won the admiration of the other Smoke Jaguar members, who elected him their Khan. Operation Klondike. As Franklin Osis had been raised on Eden, made his clan one of obvious choices to liberate the planet. The lead elements of Jaguar Tumen landed on Amr, on 2 July, and immediately found attacked by the local militia. The fight turned the ill-disciplined Jaguars into a disciplined and proficient fighting machine, liberating the towns and villages on Amur inexorably. During the Amur campaign, the Jaguars were assisted by Hell's Horse's auxiliaries to secure the captured territories, but on Irkutsk they were alone. The pace of Jaguar advance slowed, and many Jaguars became frustrated. In the Kaliningrad city, an incident between a Jaguar guard and some workers caused the population to rise in a general insurrection, fueled by histories of torture and rape by some of the Jaguar warriors. Several Jaguar warriors were killed by the mobs, and Osis ordered his forces to withdraw outside the city. The Khan designated every occupant of the town an enemy combatant and ordered his aerospace and artillery units to level the city, killing hundreds. The last survivors were easily subdued. When the Khan did not reprove the Jaguar brutality, Osis and Ismail adopted the same tactic on future operations. Upon arriving at an enemy settlement, the Jaguars announced themselves as the, quote, destroyers of Kaliningrad, unquote, and promised the same destiny to any town or village that resisted them. By the middle of August, all Jaguar objectives were completed, a week ahead of schedule with little casualties but vast damage to the civilian infrastructure, and the Jaguars refused to assist the civilians that had been rendered homeless. They should have surrendered after the first lesson, was Osis's sole comment on the matter. Ilkhan Kerensky was furious, and in the future would be much more circumspect in the freedom he gave the Jaguars. When the Ilkhan called the Jaguars to join the assault on Eden's capital, Novi Moskva, defended by the Ascendancy Marshal Foundation, Osis suggested that the city be razed to the ground, but Nicholas refused, choosing a more conventional attack. The Jaguars found themselves beset by gnats, militia often armed only with small-caliber weapons, and became frustrated. When a group of terrorists sought refuge in an apartment complex, refusing to surrender, the Jaguars began a systematic bombardment of the block, causing its collapse and killing more than 80 civilians. The Golden Century. Khan Franklin Osis had always acknowledged the value of the civilian castes, insofar as their efforts supported the warrior caste, and towards the end of his rule began to see the need for peaceful pursuits, if only so that warriors had some breathing space between battles. Unfortunately, he was followed by a succession of short-sighted Khans who continued to glorify war and only war. While other clans were taking advantage of the potential wealth gained through colonization and trade during what became known as the Golden Century, the Smoke Jaguars found themselves economically sidelined during these relatively peaceful years. They colonized fewer worlds than most other clans, and what few worlds they did colonize were dedicated to military pursuits rather than resource extraction. Ironically, this deprived them not only of wealth, but the military advantages they should have gained by exploiting it. Instead, the clan used their military assets to seize what they needed from others, fighting countless trials of possession over everything from Brian caches to genetic bloodlines, winning enough to support themselves and maintain their prominence. In this manner, the Smoke Jaguars were one of the first clans to gain possession of Omni-Mech technology from Clan Coyote. They were also one of only 2 clans, the other being Clan Hell's Horses, to win possession of battle armor technology from Clan Diamond Shark without resorting to bartering. This had come after several unsuccessful attempts to win the technology from Clan Wolf, and though they had seemingly accomplished this task without much of a fight, the Smoke Jaguars ended up paying a hefty premium for Hargel. This effort to take what they could from others became pronounced during their absorption of Clan Mongoose. Despite being well known for their casual brutality, surprisingly the Smoke Jaguars were not the most aggressive clan during the Golden Century. That distinction belonged to Clan Mongoose, driven by Khans who mortally feared showing any martial weakness to their competitors. They were almost as infamous for their incessant attacks on many of their neighbors as they were for their constant political maneuvering, which had over the years earned for their clan the nickname the Weasels. The result of this raiding and politicking meant that Mongoose clan had made many enemies, and in 2868, as they launched an attack on the Smoke Jaguar world of Atreus, their bitter rivals, Clan Staradder, simultaneously launched their own multi-world assault on Clan Mongoose. In the Grand Council, the Mongoose Khans pleaded for censure of the Smoke Jaguars, but their effort backfired and Khan Theodore Osis successfully won the right to absorb them. The resulting conflict saw the Smoke Jaguars win nearly all Mongoose planets and material, though they refused to make use of the captured genetic legacies, instead preferring to let them fade into obscurity. Clan Cloud Cobra would end up fighting trials of possession for many of these bloodlines and utilize them, much to the chagrin of the Smoke Jaguars. Khan Theodore Osis's rage would not be easily abated, and it would be next be directed at the Staradders. Though some sources claim the Jaguars were mollified about the Adder's independent assault just before the trial's initial engagement in space above Circe, other sources indicate that it was not fully resolved until sometime after the absorption had ended. Either way, Khan Osus would next bring somewhat dubious charges against the Star Adders in the Grand Council. In these charges, Osus claimed that the Star Adders' reconquest of multiple planets, previously taken from them by Clan Mongoose, robbed his warriors of their full measure of victory. Charges that the Star Adders' Khan Battletech would seem rather indifferent toward. The fact that Khan Osus had known of the Adder attacks before he asked for the rights to absorption did not seem to matter. He would go so far as to call for punishment of the Star Adders. These charges would be brushed aside by the Grand Council with acknowledgement of the Star Adders' right to revenge in the matter, but the subsequent feud would not end between these two clans for a long time to come. The success of the Smoke Jaguars' military endeavors only furthered the discrimination the ruling warrior caste directed towards not only their own civilians but freeborns as well, until even their very existence was scorned. Though all clans valued their warrior caste above others and directed some measure of contempt towards freebirths, the Smoke Jaguar clan took this to an entirely new level, leading to much greater resentment among those ostensibly meant to support the warriors' ability to fight. The merchant caste in particular found their treatment vexing, as the warriors' disdain for economic activity saw countless opportunities for profit wasted, and their control of the clan council left little chance for a fair hearing. The merchants' response was to skim profits from those ventures they were allowed to pursue, a decision which resulted in the Launderholm Revolt. In the wake of that bloody massacre, Khan Ian Moon removed what little measure of self-governance the civilian case had, placing absolute authority in the hands of the warriors. The political century. Though their military successes had managed to keep the clan relevant, the Smoke Jaguars were inexorably falling behind the other clans in political and economic terms throughout the 29th and 30th centuries. Only a constant turnout of highly skilled warriors allowed the Smoke Jaguars to keep pace, and even here their military strength was being outstripped by the technological breakthroughs pioneered by other clans. Even the clan's system of limited warfare soon became a liability as it deprived the Smoke Jaguar warriors sufficient opportunity to gain glory in combat. As the early decades of the 30th century wore on, the clans began to turn their attention back to the Inner Sphere and the Hidden Hope Doctrine, the belief that one day they would return and rebuild the Shattered Star League by destroying the decadent Great Houses. With their deteriorating situation and eyes fixed on the one challenging target left to them, Clan Smoke Jaguar was the first to shape this spreading idea into a specific immediate call to arms, publicly claiming that the clans had successfully purged themselves of the Inner Sphere's taint and that their return, which both Alexander and Nicholas Kerensky had foretold, was at hand. This call for invasion immediately split the clans politically, the Smoke Jaguars and their supporters taking the title Crusaders, while their opponents took on the moniker Wardens. That Clan Wolf became the leader of the Warden movement helped the Jaguars gain the enthusiastic support of Clan Jade Falcon, and during the last decades of the 30th century, both clans' pro-invasion propaganda efforts gained enough converts that by 3000, not even the Wolf clan could prevent a vote in the Grand Council. Con Curlin Ward of Clan Wolf, however, managed to stymie the Crusaders' first vote with the famous Dragoon Compromise, an agreement that sent a unit of freebirth warriors to secretly reconnoiter the Inner Sphere in the guise of a mercenary unit. For the Smoke Jaguars, the only thing more offensive than the fact that Clan Wolf had proposed the idea was that, for a mission of such importance, it would be carried out by dirty freebirth warriors liable to turn traitor. Regardless, the Grand Council approved the measure, and the Smoke Jaguars' dislike for the Wolf clan grew into open hatred. Unbeknownst to many, as Wolf Dragoons left in 3004, the future leader of the clan's Inner Sphere invasion was born on the Smoke Jaguar capital of Huntress. Leo Showers not only distinguished himself as a mech warrior from an early age, rising quickly through the ranks and gaining his blood name, but also became the most eloquent and prominent advocate for the Crusader philosophy. In 3029, by dint of his combat skills and political acumen, he was elected Khan of Clan Smoke Jaguar, and for the next 20 years, slowly and relentlessly tipped the Grand Council in favor of invasion, redoubling his efforts after every setback imposed by his hated rival, the Wolf Khan Ulrich Kerensky. Fortune finally favored Khan Showers in 3048 when the Comstar Explorer Corps starship Outbound Light appeared in the orbit above Huntress. The ship and its crew were quickly seized, giving the Smoke Jaguars the only source of current information on the Inner Sphere after Wolf Dragoon's apparent desertion. With no contradictory information to challenge his claims, the astute Khan Showers put this information to good use with no small amount of manipulation and doctored evidence. In arguments before the Grand Council, he referenced the creation of the Federated Commonwealth, implying that the Inner Sphere was rebuilding the Star League on its own without their influence, and that the ship's unexpected appearance in clan space was a prelude to invasion. The Grand Council was won over by his arguments and not only voted to invade the Inner Sphere, but elected Leo Showers as Ilkhan. Jubilant Smoke Jaguar warriors celebrated their victory with parades and feasts, confident that they had finally achieved their rightful glory. Taking Leo Showers' place as the Smoke Jaguar Khan was Lincoln Osis. Bidding and trials were held to determine which clans would be granted the honor of invading the Inner Sphere, and to their delight, the Smoke Jaguar warriors performed well enough to be among the 4 clans chosen to spearhead the assault. Joined by Clan Wolf, Clan Jade Falcon, and Clan Ghostbear, Ilkhan Showers, working in conjunction with Jade Falcon Khan Elias Krishel, devised the basic outline of the invasion by assigning each clan an invasion corridor, with the Smoke Jaguars winning the honor of attacking the Draconis Combine, supposed allies of the hated Stefan Amaris. They also revealed an obscure passage from one of Nicholas Kerensky's diaries, which they interpreted to mean whatever clan captured Terra would become the Ill Clan. Operation Revival. The first planets to feel the wrath of the clans were those located in the periphery, backwater worlds which happened to lay within the clan's line of advance. Here the Smoke Jaguars fought a number of battles for control of these poorly defended planets, with none save Satander's world putting up any kind of hard-fought or costly resistance. Indeed, by January 3050, the Smoke Jaguars had conquered all of their targeted worlds, and their only annoyance being that Clan Wolf had been quicker to complete their conquests and looked forward to facing more challenging opposition. With the start of the first wave, the Smoke Jaguar warriors fought their first battles against what was hoped to be more challenging and honorable opponents. To their dismay, they cut through the opposing DCMS troops like a hot knife, facing only significant opposition on Richmond. What stung more was their apparent inability to deal with Korea partisans, as the people rose up to fight their new oppressive overlords. Even with the assistance of Comstar administrators, Smoke Jaguar warriors proved incapable of managing the masses, instead resorting to wholesale butchery in response to any resistance. This flaw was no more apparent than on the planet Turtle Bay, where the Smoke Jaguars had unknowingly captured Hohiro Kurita, son of Theodore Kurita, only to discover his identity after he had escaped during a jailbreak. Their search to recapture him was hamstrung by local Yakuza resistance, until finally Smoke Jaguar troops were withdrawn from the capital, Edo, and the city was leveled by the warship Sabercat. Even the most hardline crusaders saw the orbital bombardment as an act of cowardice, and Clan Wolf took the opportunity to swear it would bid away all naval assets for the rest of the campaign, forcing the rest of the clans to follow suit to keep their honor. The second wave was far less successful as the local populaces continued to resist the Smoke Jaguar's iron grip, requiring more troops he be held back to keep control. Matters were helped less by the fact that Clan Wolf was once again outpacing the Jaguars, causing many to vent their frustration on the increasingly poor and hungry civilians. The clan eventually brought forth provisional garrison clusters, second-line units with inferior equipment, to garrison their conquered territory and free up front-line units for the third wave. Unfortunately, these PGCs were ill-prepared for the wave of rebellions which sprung up around them. Supplied in secret by Theodore Kurita, while the so-called Paradise Syndrome struck the warrior caste, causing many to fight trials of possession with each other over the rich bounty they beheld. Ilkhan Showers was forced to intervene personally in the matter, even leading Smoke Jaguar units in battle in order to overcome the third wave's bad start. The Jaguars managed to finish ahead of the other 3 clans, but were still overshadowed by Clan Wolf's capture of more planets and the capital world of Rosselhog. The fourth wave saw the heaviest fighting since the start of the invasion as fresh, well-equipped DCMS units appeared on the front lines, freed from patrolling the borders of Fedcom space. It also saw the Jaguars' first true defeat during the attempted conquest of Wolcott, where Hohiro Kurita laid a trap for the attacking Jaguars and captured several Omnimechs and 24 elemental suits. The shock of this defeat paled in comparison when it was learned that Ilkhan Showers was killed during the Battle of Radstadt. Both Jaguar Khans remained oddly silent, as the clans debated and agreed on returning to clan space and elect a new Ilkhan. Their shock and grief finally broken when the Jade Falcon Khan suggested they turn their rage on Clan Wolf. A conspiracy to blame the former Ilkhan's death on Wolf Khan Kerensky failed thanks to the bondsman Phelan Kell's testimony, as did a second to elect Kerensky as the new Ilkhan to allow a more crusader-minded Khan to lead Clan Wolf when Natasha Kerensky instead took his place. Ilkhan Kerensky thanked the Jaguars by assigning as a supporting partner their rivals Clan Novacat, though the Jaguar Khans managed to sidestep this somewhat by simply handing over their most rebellious worlds for the Novacats to deal with. The Smoke Jaguars were determined to capture a capital world, seeing it as a way to regain the necessary clout to challenge Ulrich for the position of Ilkhan, and for the fifth wave they set their sights on Luthien. When Theodore Kurita learned of the clan's target, he began preparations to defend the world, only to be surprised when he received unexpected help. Though Hans Davian, Prince of the Federated Commonwealth, had sworn to Theodore that no AFFC forces would invade Combine space for the duration of the hostilities, he conceived of an alternative and managed to convince the Kellhounds and Wolf's Dragoons to assist House Kurita in the Battle of Luthien. The appearance of the two elite mercenary units was just enough to secure victory and deal the Jaguars a devastating and humiliating blow, one which they took out on their Novacat allies and subjugated population. It took over a month for them to recover their losses and another month to finish their fifth wave conquests, taking heavier than expected losses and losing all hope catching up with Clan Wolf. Eager for a chance to redeem themselves in the eyes of the other clans, the Jaguar Khans overcame their instinctive distrust of Ilkhan Kerensky and took heart from his announcement that the fate of Terra would be decided in a proxy battle on Tukiad. In the bidding for the Battle of Tukiad, the Smoke Jaguars won the honor of being the first clan to land and having to capture the most prestigious targets, simultaneously successfully conspiring to have Clan Wolf land last and capture the least prestigious targets. Unfortunately, they had done so while bidding away an entire galaxy, leaving them with the least amount of forces, and took little note of their supplies or the supposedly weak Comguard units. In the disaster that resulted, both Khan Osis and Sakon Sarah Weaver were defeated, leaving the clan leaderless, while both Alpha and Beta Galaxy were savagely mauled, many refusing Ilkhan Kerensky's order to retreat in order to go down fighting. The losses suffered at Tukiad would not be easily repaired, and eventually proved to be the downfall of Clan Smoke Jaguar. Post-Tukiad. With the apparent deaths of both Khans, new leadership was desperately needed, and Star Colonel Brandon Howell was elected as Khan shortly after Tukiad. However, whilst Khan Howell began the struggle to rebuild the Smoke Jaguar Tumen, Lincoln Osis suddenly returned, having been apparently rescued during salvage operations on Tukiad. Howell accepted the former leader's return and took up position of Sakon instead with good grace. Unfortunately, Khan Osis's attempt at rebuilding were constantly frustrated not only by rebellions on their inner sphere holdings, but by constant raiding from the Combine and from other clans. These included attacks by Novacats, as well as a deep strike raid launched by Clan Wolf while passing through the Ghost Bear occupation zone en route to clan space to elect a new Ilkhan. Khan Lincoln Osis was able to quickly rebuild Beta and Delta galaxies with reinforcements from the homeworlds, but the two galaxies spent the next few years in almost constant combat as the DCMS and Clans Wolf and Novacat staged numerous raids on the Jaguars. No sooner would the Jaguars replenish and refit one cluster than another cluster would take heavy damage in a raid. In an attempt to regain lost honor, Khan Osis split his resources and ordered the reformation of Alpha Galaxy and the creation of Tau Galaxy. The reemergence of Alpha Galaxy and its centerpiece unit, the 6th Jaguar Dragoons, was critical for Osis's personal honor. Tau Galaxy was formed to destroy Novacat forces in the inner sphere in reprisal for the recent losses the Jaguars had sustained at their hands. The galaxy was lost, however, when the Northwind Highlanders Regiment, Sterling's Fusiliers, landed on the planet Wayside 5, where Tau Galaxy was based in preparation to invade the Novacat worlds in the inner sphere. Tau Galaxy's 3 clusters pursued the main body of the Fusiliers in a running battle across Wayside 5. Unbeknownst to the Jaguars, the Fusiliers had one trump card to play. The Fusiliers sent a small unit disguised as Smoke Jaguars to stage several attacks against the Novacats in an attempt to goad the Novacats into following them back to Wayside 5. After 4 such attacks, the Novacat Khans sent 2 clusters to Wayside 5, where they found Tau Galaxy engaged in a pitched battle with the remnants of Sterling's Fusiliers. In a fierce battle to the death, the Novacats destroyed the remaining elements of Tau Galaxy, but allowed the surviving Fusiliers to live. The loss of Tau Galaxy further deepened the hatred the Smoke Jaguars felt toward the Novacats. The annihilation of the Smoke Jaguars. Operation Bulldog. In 3059, Khan Lincoln Osis was elected Ilkhan, and he immediately began planning the continuation of the invasion of the inner sphere. Wolf Khan Vladimir Ward and Jade Falcon Khan Martha Pride foiled this plan by forcing him to give the other clans 9 months to earn slots in the invasion force. Although deeply angered by their ploy, Osis had little choice but to accede to their demands. Ilkhan Osis also used this time to order the formation of several new frontline clusters, as well as increasing the flow of supplies to the clusters already in position in the occupation zone. In May of that year, the Smoke Jaguars were shocked to find that the Inner Sphere, under the banner of the Second Star League, launched an offensive into their occupation zone. The first wave targeted only 5 worlds, but all fell quickly under the Second Star League Defense Force's enormous firepower. The Jaguars fared little better in the second wave, losing 11 worlds but managing to cripple 2 SLDF regiments on Luzerne. During the short lull between the second and third waves, the Jaguars launched a counteroffensive aimed at weakening the SLDF's support structure and forcing it to pull units back to deal with the counteroffensive. The plan quickly fell apart when it became apparent that the targeted worlds were more than capable of defending themselves. Again, the Jaguars sustained heavy losses with little to show for the effort. The third wave signaled the end of the Smoke Jaguar presence in the Inner Sphere. What few units that remained retreated after putting up token resistance. The fourth wave finished the Jaguars, as those garrison clusters stranded fought until forced to surrender or, in some cases, fought to the death. By the end of August, the Jaguars were beaten and in retreat. Battle of Huntress. In late 3060, an Inner Sphere task force, codenamed Serpent, struck at the Smoke Jaguar homeworld Huntress. The Jaguar garrison commander, Russo Howell, had only 2 provisional galaxies to withstand the onslaught of 10 elite Inner Sphere regiments. Both sides wreaked enormous damage upon another. Howell used the opportunity to unleash a deadly new war machine. Dubbed proto-mechs, these miniature mechs were piloted by washed-out aerospace pilots using the new enhanced imaging system. The EI system, coupled with the improved armor and weaponry, allowed the proto-mech pilots to wreak considerable damage on the Serpent forces before they were destroyed. After several days of almost non-stop combat, Task Force Serpent crushed the last of the Jaguar garrison forces. Task Force Serpent's respite from the battle was short-lived when the remnants of Smoke Jaguar Inner Sphere forces returned to Huntress for repairs and refitting. Shocked at finding their homeworld in the hands of the Inner Sphere troops, the Smoke Jaguars, led by Galaxy Commander Hong Meta, launched a brutal counterattack. With barely 2 galaxies of troops, the Jaguars hammered mercilessly against the elite Serpent troops. Several days into the battle, Ilkhan Lincoln Osis and his bodyguard unit arrived on Huntress to coordinate the counterattack. Both sides sustained losses in excess of 60%, with many pilots dead and hundreds of mechs laying strewn across the battlefields. The Jaguars launched one final counterattack with their remaining forces. The battle was almost lost for the Inner Sphere if not for the skill and valor of the Eridani Light Horse. The LH troops held the line but at a tremendous cost. Their leader, General Ariana Winston, was killed in the final moments of the battle. Winston's death marked the turning point for the campaign. Prince Victor Steiner Davian, leading another task group to Huntress, arrived in system just before the final battle began. The fresh troops he led quickly hunted down and eliminated all Jaguar resistance within a few days. Unfortunately for the Inner Sphere, Ilkhan Lincoln Osis was able to escape with a handful of warriors to Strana Mechty. War's End. Following the battle for Huntress, Prince Victor led the SLDF troops to Strana Mechty for a final battle with the clans, a trial of refusal against the invasion of the Inner Sphere. The Grand Council accepted his challenge, though, due to politicking, the challenge would be met only by the 8 Crusader clans, which agreed to each send a binary of troops to face off against an equivalent SLDF company. Ilkhan Lincoln Osis led his remaining troops, 9 Omnimech points and an Elemental point, in battle against Prince Victor and the 10th Lyran Guards. The Jaguars fought with all the ferocity of their namesake, but were ultimately crushed by the Guards. In the end, Ilkhan Osis challenged Prince Victor to a personal duel, taking off his elemental battle armor. Victor climbed out of his mech with his katana at his side, but declined the challenge. Instead, he declared that Clan Smoke Jaguar was destroyed and that none of his warriors had to die anymore, announcing that any survivors would be welcome to the Star League. Realizing that his Crusader beliefs had been wrong, Lincoln Osis broke down and muttered, "What in the name of Kerensky have we done?" Not wishing to outlive his clan or be a bondsman, he asked Victor to kill him, but the prince refused and turned his back on the Ilkhan, saying that the last Smoke Jaguar warrior had died today. When Osis attacked him anyways, Victor instinctively drew his sword and beheaded the warrior. With a tear in his eye, he spoke. The invasion started with a Smoke Jaguar, and now it has ended with one. The last Smoke Jaguar warrior did die here today. May he rest in peace. With the death of Lincoln Osis, the Smoke Jaguar clan effectively ceased to exist. Its holdings on Huntress were either destroyed or under Star League control, and its entire fighting arm crushed by the SLDF. The SLDF declared Lutera, the capital of Huntress, a neutral zone, and Victor Steiner Davian appointed Colonel Paul Masters, commander of the Knights of the Inner Sphere, as the Inner Sphere's first ambassador to the clans. An attempt was made by Galaxy Commander Brendan Corbett to resurrect the clan, but Operation Damocles put an end to that effort. The Smoke Jaguars' possessions and enclaves on Huntress, Launderholm, Vinton, Homer, Kieran, and Tranquil were seized by the other clans. Annihilation survivors. While Clan Smoke Jaguar ceased to exist as an entity following the Great Refusal, a small number of Jaguar warriors remained alive and escaped to various parts of known space. Turning to banditry, some Jaguars scavenged what they could from isolated planets, while others made their way to Port Kryn on Antelos and set about destroying small pirate bands. Rumors arose of some Jaguars establishing themselves on Astrokazi, perhaps due to that world's status as a former SLDF supply base, and fighting between them and Desgor units from other clans over the caches. One of these groups end somehow as gladiators in Solara 7. They were almost a binary led by Garrett, obsessed with avenging his clan, focusing and fighting against Combine gladiators. They fought as a unit, allied with pro-Davian stables during the Solaris riots, where Garrett was killed by another Davian gladiator. Around 3067, a group of Jaguar renegades calling themselves Dark were one party suspected of mounting a covert attack upon a Diamond Shark trading flotilla, the Mika Majority. They settled themselves on Antelos until their annihilation by the Snow Ravens the same year. Smoke Jaguar warriors were discovered on the world of Yori during the Jihad. Discovered by members of Devlin Stone's Allied Coalition on November 3076, the warriors had evidently been captured by the Draconis Combine, either during Operation Bulldog or on Huntress, and interned on Yori. When the Word of Blake incorporated Yori into the Word of Blake Protectorate, re-education camps were established on the planet, and it was from these two camps that the Smoke Jaguar warriors had liberated themselves when found by the Allies. In clan space, Russo Howell reappeared in 3063, leading a brutal bandit raid on the Diamond Shark enclave on Vinton. However, known only as the Jaguar to clan society at large, and other ex-Jaguars, formed the core of an unusually large and well-organized bandit-cased force that included 2 clusters worth of warriors, plus the rundown but functional warship Streaking Mist, the group's mainstay space vessel. The Jaguar and his group, allied with the Society, preyed upon numerous clan enclaves during the Wars of Reaving and after. In 3079, the Jaguar was finally cornered and slain on Ghent by Clan Staradder Solama. Dark Age. In the MechWarrior Dark Age universe, it has been revealed that the last of the Smoke Jaguar warrior caste were later brought to the Inner Sphere by former Star Colonel Paul Moon and crafted into a secret fighting force known as the Fidelis, a special forces unit held in reserve for use under catastrophic times for the Republic of the Sphere, in a fashion similar to which Comstar hid the Comguards. They were the same prisoners liberated in Yori in 3076. They were finally activated after the establishment of Fortress Republic. Led by the Paladin and former Exarch Damian Redburn, they launched a series of Black Ops missions in Jade Falcon and Old Merrick and Republic space to ensure the establishment of Fortress Republic. All known missions were successful. 21 years after the establishment of Fortress Republic, after forcibly putting an end to the Republic's civil war, it was judged by Exarch Joan 11 that they had fulfilled their debt to the Inner Sphere, and they were free to once again establish themselves as they chose. After being released by the Republic of the Sphere, this is the Ill Clan era, the Fidelis revealed their Smoke Jaguar origins to Khan Alaric Ward. The aging Custos, known as Paul Moon, came to an agreement with Khan Ward that would allow for the eventual rebirth of Clan Smoke Jaguar upon Clan Wolf's ascension to Ill Clan. Following the total victory of Clan Wolf over the forces of Clan Jade Falcon in the Ill Clan trials, Khan Ward honored his agreement and the Smoke Jaguars were born anew. When Ward established the Third Star League, the Smoke Jaguars were granted a non-voting seat on its High Council with full voting privileges to follow once the clan had increased its numbers and proven its viability. Prohaska Moon and Richmond Howell were elected as the first Khan and Saw Khan of the reborn clan. During Operation Persuasion, the Smoke Jaguars acted as the new SLDF's special forces. Jaguar warriors waged a shadow war with Capellan Death Commandos as they hampered Confederation counterinsurgency efforts, allegedly with insider assistance, or sought to protect Star League assets from Capellan sabotage. This conflict would rage throughout the entirety of Persuasion until the alleged death of Chancellor Dao Shen Liao in June 3152 caused the remaining Death Commandos to break contact and head home to Xi'an. Khan Moon herself personally led a group known as the Spirit Stalkers to free New Home from Capellan rule. By the time wolf forces arrived there in May 3152, the Jaguars had already undermined warrior House Ijori's defenses through sabotage attacks and assassinations, culminating with House leader Mai Un-Wa being taken captive by Khan Moon and the remainder of Ijori accepting Hegra when their position was rendered untenable. For their achievements, Ilkhan Ward granted new home to the Jaguars as their new homeworld. The decision to reestablish Clan Smoke Jaguar was not without its critics. Given the infamous brutality exhibited by the clan's previous incarnation and the acrimony it was still held in by Inner Sphere denizens, especially the Draconis Combine, many wondered how the reborn Jaguars would fit into the New Star League's vision of a unified and peaceful humanity. The controversial actions of the Fidelis and their sometimes dishonorable behavior to ensure their survival only added fuel to the criticism, both from spheroids who considered them Devlin Stone's private death squad and clanners with little respect for a clan which to them exemplified failure. Besides external barbs, the Jaguars themselves had to wrestle with questions as to who and what exactly they were. Issues such as how much of their non-traditional fighting style from their time as Fidelis to keep and dealing with their dark history posed problems for the newborn clan. Their usage of sabotage, espionage, and battlefield assassination during Operation Persuasion against Warrior House Ijori and the Death Commandos didn't dispel outsider sentiments. The Jaguars at this point were fully dependent upon the Star League's success, as their own survival was bound to it. Culture. Hard-hitting and totally unforgiving of the weakness of others, the Smoke Jaguars quickly established themselves as the most brutal and aggressive of the clans. Originally led by their founder, Khan Franklin Osis, the Smoke Jaguars' leadership would continue to set extreme standards for members of the warrior caste throughout their history. Khan Osis's lust for battle led the Jaguars to many victories in the clan's early days. His vision of the Jaguars being the ultimate warrior clan inspired his troops to greater feats of prowess on the battlefield, assuring their prominence among the clans. During the campaigns of Operation Klondike, Khan Osis's savagery and sheer fighting prowess set the pattern for Clan Smoke Jaguar's future. However, the warrior caste view that they were the epitome of clan society, and all others were beneath them, caused numerous problems with the lower caste over the centuries. While all clans give preferential treatment to its warrior caste, they still acknowledge the debt they owe to the civilian caste. The Smoke Jaguars took it to the extreme, valuing them less and less as the years went on until they scorned their very existence. The harsh discipline maintained by the warrior caste meant that any transgression by the lower caste would be dealt with severely, as would infamously happen during the Londerholm Revolt during the Golden Century. The disdain they showed the lower caste would have its own negative effect on the clan, as civilian pursuits such as trade and resource extraction went underdeveloped. Only by constantly raiding other clans were the Smoke Jaguars able to maintain their prominence. Military. The Smoke Jaguar Tumen was similar to how most other clans organized their military. Several frontline galaxies organized into clusters with Omnimechs, Elementals, and Omnifighters, while second-line units provided support. The Smoke Jaguar training regimen was also the strictest of any save Clan Steel Viper. While this produced a steady stream of highly skilled warriors, it was also the most deadly and for any unfortunate to fail. They were infamous for their use of frontal assaults to smash through and obliterate an opponent, counting on aggressive tactics and overwhelming numbers of heavy and assault weight mechs to achieve victory. Aerospace forces were used to attack the enemy and provide air cover for ground forces, while elementals supported the mechs and provided overwatch for ambushes. The Smoke Jaguars were also known for their strict chain of command and rigid adherence to prearranged battle plans, a trait which made them vulnerable to a force which was more flexible and willing to adapt to a changing battlefield. While obligated to follow clan honor rules during combat, the Smoke Jaguars reacted poorly to an opponent who broke them, such as the case on Idlewind, where, after surviving a booby-trapped ambush, Smoke Jaguar forces rampaged through a nearby capital city, killing civilians and razing buildings in search for the cowardly militia. In such cases, elementals were also used to form headhunter units whose goal was to seek out and destroy the enemy's headquarters, killing the offending unit's commanders and leaving them leaderless. As was the case with the civilian case, the Smoke Jaguar view on freebirths was also the extreme of clan norms, permitting even fewer than normal the chance to become warriors. Within a century of Khan Franklin Osis's death, the Smoke Jaguar Tumen had practically no freeborn warriors at all, a situation which led to a precipitous decline in manpower. Rather than reverse their position on freebirths, the Smoke Jaguar leadership instead instituted the controversial step of allowing lost my place. All right, as was the case with civilian case, view on freebirths was also the extreme of clan norms, permitting even fewer than normal the chance to become warriors. Within a century of Con Franklin Osis's death, the Smoke Jaguar Tumen had practically no freeborn warriors at all, a situation which led to a precipitous decline in manpower. Rather than reverse their position on freebirths, the Smoke Jaguar leadership instead instituted the controversial step of allowing trueborn warriors the chance to fight 2 trials of position to earn their place. Despite this ruling, freebirth warriors were never totally removed and still fought in the Tumen. The 22nd Freebirth Cluster participated in the Battle of Luthien. Freebirth warriors often raided the Draconis Combine border worlds between 3053 and 3059, and clusters of Innersphere bondsmen were being raised prior to Operation Bulldog. The Smoke Jaguars, in their first incarnation, modeled themselves after their namesake totem by emphasizing raw strength, straightforward attacks, and sheer aggression. In contrast, their successors in the Ill Clan era took a more symbolic, pragmatic, and sinister approach to warfare, emphasizing smoke connotations of the alpha predator rather than solely the jaguar portion of its name. The latter made heavy use of deceptive measures and operated more as a special forces unit specialized in irregular warfare akin to the Death Commandos, or DEST, than as frontline shock troops. As a clan, they also inherited their Fidelis forebears' unorthodox beliefs that the ultimate warriors should excel in all forms of combat, instead focusing on their assigned subcase specialty. All right, there are separate articles for the Khans, Sakhans, and Lore Masters. Territorial possessions. Huntress was Clan Smoke Jaguar's capital world from early in its history and remained their exclusive holding until 3049, when Khan Leo Showers gifted the enclave that would become Falcon's Eyrie to his Jade Falcon allies. Launderholm was a key breadbasket world for the Jaguars. At the time of their annihilation, the Jaguars also held territory on Atreus, Circe, Eden, Homer, Kirin, Tranquil, and Vinton. After the re-establishment as an extant clan, the Smoke Jaguars were granted overlordship of Newhome by First Lord Alaric Ward. There's a separate article for the blood names, and alright, interclan relations. Clan Smoke Jaguar's aggressive and brutal nature towards its own lowercase alienated them from other clans. In addition, the abrasive attitude they have shown towards others has ensured that they have more enemies and no official allies among the clans. Theoretically, the Crusader clans could be considered like-minded allies, but they want nothing to do with the Smoke Jaguars. As for any clan who carries the Warden viewpoint, they are automatically considered enemies of Clan Smoke Jaguar. Events such as the Launderholm Revolt and their actions in Operation Revival have soured clan relationships even further. As a result, no invading clan would lift a finger to assist the Jaguars when they were forced out of the Inner Sphere permanently. Alright. Clan Jade Falcon, ally. One notable ally of the Smoke Jaguars was Clan Jade Falcon. During Operation Revival, Jade Falcon Khan Elias Critchell and Ilkhan Leo Showers, later Ilkhan Lincoln Osis, would work together to foil Wolf Khan Ulrich Kerensky. However, the brutal actions of Clan Smoke Jaguar would make the Falcons rethink their partnership and turn on the Jaguars, ultimately leading to their demise. After the conclusion of the Dark Age era, the reformed Smoke Jaguars would act as partners with Clan Jade Falcon. Clan Diamond Shark, ally. Clan Diamond Shark was considered an ally to the Smoke Jaguars during Ian Hawker's reign as Khan, but the Jaguars always stymied the Sharks' efforts to assist them. Clan Wolf, enemy. The only clan which is considered their one true enemy is Clan Wolf. The Jaguars would oppose the Wolves at every turn, both militarily and politically. The Jaguars would plot consistently against the powerful Warden clan, resulting in numerous setbacks that would cost them heavily. The rivalry with the Wolves would ultimately end with their own destruction. A century later, they would be reformed as protectors of the reborn Star League, following their participation during the Ill Clan trial. Clan Nova Cat, enemy. When it comes to allies, the Smoke Jaguars are consider the Nova Cats as their first ally due to the love relationship between Jaguar Sakhan Liam Ismail and Nova Cat Khan Sandra Rose. However, after the relationship ended, Liam would respond to the rejection brutally by shoving the clan's totem inside an iron womb. This would lead the Nova Cats and Smoke Jaguars to harboring a long-lasting feud for generations. They would raid the Smoke Jaguars constantly, playing a role in their removal from the Inner Sphere. However, the Jaguars' annihilation put an end to that feud, and ironically, the Nova Cats assisted Paul Moon in ensuring their clan's survival. Notes. There are 2 Osis blood names. The first, a mech warrior phenotype that originated with Franklin Osis. The second, a presumably elemental phenotype, originated with Terissa Osis. The second is the bloodline of Lincoln Osis. Sometime between 2830 and 2854, 2 Fire Mandrill kindred traded genetic stock with the Jaguars. Also, Kendra Faraday Tanaga of Clan Firemandrel shares a minor blood name with the Jaguars. In 2868, Clan Mongoose and all its assets were absorbed into the Smoke Jaguar clan. This brought an enormous amount of genetic legacies, which the Jaguars chose not to use. The Cloud Cobras launched trials of possessions for just over 70 legacies from 11 Mongoose blood houses during 2868 to 2871. Despite this, the Jaguars maintained control of the blood names, as Confalen Kell testifies that only 3 Mongoose blood names are still in use in 3060. In German products, the clan's name was translated to Nebelparder, with Nebel meaning mist and Parder being an archaic term for leopard. All right. That is, we're going to skip the quotes, but that is the Smoke Jaguars. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please drop a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to hear next. And as always, like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more of these types of videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.